Hi, 7th graders. This is going to be a short video today and probably a pretty short Google Meet today as well. This is Chapter 1, Lesson 2, and it's a worksheet assignment. We're doing about a worksheet a week because, again, there's 30 of them, and so this is our second of 30 worksheets that we have to do in order to get the Washington State History credit. Chapter 1, Lesson 2 focuses on the 5 regions of Washington, shown by this map. So you got the coastal range, which is defined by the Olympics. You have the Olympic National Park here. Of course, the water, the Pacific Ocean there. We have the largest rainforest in the United States is located there. But for those of you who've been to the beaches, there's the towns of La Push, Kalaloch, Quinault. Any of those areas are in the coastal range. Some of you guys have been to Forks. That's on the way to the beaches, right around where that S would be in the word coastal. Also Port Angeles. Wet, rainy region. Second region is the Puget Sound lowlands. That is where the bulk of Washington's population lives, including us. This is all flatlands. And again, another rainy region because we get all the weather off the ocean. This is the I-5 corridor. This is where most people in Washington live. By far the most populated, by far the most jobs. So the richest region of Washington State. And of course it includes all of our major cities of Tacoma, Vancouver, Seattle, of course, Bellevue, Everett, Bellingham, all in the Puget Sound lowlands. Then you have the Cascade Range, which is the giant mountain range that runs down the center of our state that is an active volcanic range. So you have Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier, Mount Baker, Mount Adams, all of those mountains are located in the Cascade Range. Rocky Mountain Range, we have just a touch of the Rockies. This is also often called the Okanagan Highlands. This is a dry range. It's sparsely populated. If you've been to the towns of Twisp or Okanagan or Winthrop, this is often the area that is the least populated in Washington. One of my favorite areas in Washington. One of the driest areas in Washington. But one of my favorite areas in Washington would be right around here, right where that white line is. And that's the Pasayten Wilderness, where we happen to have our gray wolves and the largest population in the United States of lynx, the big cats. Columbia Plateau, we're going to talk more about tomorrow. Columbia Plateau is where you'd find Moses Lake, Lake Chelan, Yakima, and it is a plateau, if you don't know, is a high, flat region. So it is basically, you don't realize it necessarily when you're driving on the Columbia Plateau, but it is a high, flat, dry region, much hotter weather over there, much less populated, but what it is good for is growing apples. So Columbia Plateau is the last region of the 5. Your book assignment asks you to read pages 14 through 21. As you read through it, you're going to complete the worksheet. Most of the worksheet asks you to write a little bit about each region. One question that is often confusing is the first question on the worksheet, which is what common features and activities make Washington part of both the Pacific Northwest and the Pacific Rim. So the Pacific Northwest is defined as Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and sometimes parts of Northern California. But we all know we live in the Pacific Northwest. The Pacific Rim is all the areas along the Pacific Ocean. So that includes countries that border in South America like Peru, Chile, but countries that border the Pacific Ocean in South America, Australia, Asia, and North America. So common features and activities that make Washington part of both the Pacific Northwest and the Pacific Rim is trading. We trade Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. We all do a ton of lumber. We are defined as being west of the Rocky Mountains in the Pacific Northwest. We have a lot of trees, so we're geographically defined, and that allows us to have similar products that we then ship all over the Pacific Rim. Most of our trading partners in the world, in Washington, are along the Pacific Rim. So we do a lot of trading with Asia because we're just a boat ride away. So we have historical connections where we send lumber to Japan, who is, of course, an island and has limited lumber, but we're defined by having economic relationships with these areas. That's the biggest part of that answer. Other things you can say is we're defined by common landforms. In the case of the Pacific Rim, the Puget, the Pacific Ocean, and in the case of the Pacific Northwest, west of the Rockies. Something along those lines for that answer. That's it. Big thing I want to get you to do today at our Google Meet is we'll talk a little bit about this, but I want to try and give you time to finish the worksheets. Again, we have 30 worksheets. This is the second one of 30, and we're going to do about one a week to get us through the Washington State history this year. Great. Look forward to seeing you guys next time we have a meet.